Like Mason said, my name is Laurie Nelson. I am the parent liaison on the Outreach Services team. Happy to be here. Thank you very much for welcoming three of us. You guys get a threefer for our team today. So a little bit of background about where we fit in the State Department, if you will. We are a division of, I believe Stacy, I'm going to do a lot of, I believe Stacy said, because Stacy led perfectly into a lot of what I'm going to share. I was over there head nodding. A lot of what she said I have gone through with my own personal journey. So if I keep saying, as Stacy said, then I'll just drop off and say, well, here's how we go. So we're actually a branch under the Wisconsin Educational Services Program for the deaf and hard of hearing, which is a division also under the Department of Public Instruction. So that's where we fit in the umbrella of supports and services in our great state. So we also have the School for the Deaf and then the Deafblind Technical Assistant Project. So I'm trying to slow down for the interpreters because once I get rolling on my acronyms and WDB-TAP and all the other supports that we have, WDB-TAP, TAP, this is how we do. Our mission in supporting students ages 3 to 21 who are deaf and hard of hearing and deaf-blind, their families, and the educational teams and districts that serve them is our mission in our state. And it is a privilege to be able to do that. Where do we provide our state's supports? Really all over. We go to the tiny, tiny tip of the corner in the far upper north to all points throughout. So we are a statewide organization available to support people. She makes me smile. Why is parent support so important? Because of her. This is my daughter. I have a daughter with hearing loss, and somebody had asked about the hearing screening at birth and what that impacts and how we get into early intervention and things like that. There was no early supports back when my daughter was diagnosed. Peyton is now 23, so I can speak from only my own personal experience, but and I am dating myself, I know, and if you're going to hear me say back in the day, because she first received analog hearing logs back in the day. So a little bit about her, she really has changed the course of my life to, I have a job now because of her in supporting other families in the state. So I really think it's important in what we do in terms of getting information out to families shortly after their diagnosis with hearing loss, and whenever that can come, and that can come at any age and stage. And Stacy did a nice job in saying that we don't want to compare any child. You don't compare your children one to the other. We certainly can't compare children with hearing loss to other children with hearing loss, because I'm not going to use the giraffe and the stripes, but our kids are all just unique in who they are. So why is it so important? Because of really the aspect of we're looking to build a brain. That's entirely what we're looking to do in terms of when a child is diagnosed, what access they have, communication modes and methodology, and really helping build their brains with that very short window from the ages of birth to 6. So on our team, our supports for families, we have the Parent Guide program. So you see my face lit up when I talk about that. None of these supports were available when my daughter was small. So talk about getting in a boat and rowing on your own for a really long time. I am incredibly proud of the state of Wisconsin, and thank each and every one of you for your support that you give in this field as well, because I think there's so much that we have to offer that it can be overwhelming at times too. So the Parent Guide program, and I'm not going to go through all of these one at a time, but we'll go through it on the slides. So the Parent Guide program is a direct parent-to-parent matching program for families of kids with hearing loss. So we offer families the opportunity to meet another parent just like them who's gone through this process a little bit ahead of them and that person is called a parent guide. Okay, so I started off as a parent guide 13, 14 years ago, and now I coordinate the program. So our parent guides go through extensive training to be able to support families and provide unbiased information and support, because anybody who's a parent, you know that everybody's got an opinion one way or the other how you should parent your kids, right? And then you throw in something, such as a hearing loss, where it isn't perhaps expected. There's no history of hearing loss in your family. So then other people are like, well, you should do this, or you should do that. Or my daughter wasn't diagnosed until closer to 2 because of a birth trauma. And my mom always said to me, now, Laurie Ann, I think she hears better without those hearing aids than she does with. And I, pick your battles, right? I wasn't going to fight with my mama. So, but that's kind of the point with our direct parent-to-parent support, is really making sure that families know all of the options available to them. And then with the supporting resources that we have in our state, so that they truly feel like they have, the information and knowledge to make informed decisions on behalf of their children. We do not come in and tell them what to do or how to do it. That's not our job. Our job is really to support them along their journey, because there's a lot of supports out there. But helping families navigate the system is a big part of what we do, because, it seems like once, ding, you get any type of diagnosis to anything, the next steps just happen naturally. Go here, go there, do this, do that, referral here, referral there. And some parents are just like, what do I do, right, with all of that information? So we often talk about the revolving door of services. They're either coming in or going out for an appointment, or someone's coming in. So we really can empathize with families to say, gosh, I know what that was like. I still tell parents to buy a filing cabinet, even though the world is going more electronic, but there are still things that come in paper, so it's nice to, keep families organized and helping them understand that, there's different parts in this path and the resources that we have. So like I said, our overall goal is really to empower families with an increased, knowledge and information so they can navigate the system. We specifically have different parts of the Parent Guide program. So our focus is on ages 3 to 21. Okay, so we have support after diagnosis. Okay, we also offer specific transition support when a child will transition out of birth to 3 into that next early childhood or other supports that they may be having. We're kind of new in this part, but we're looking at developing soft skills and college and career readiness for the kids 14 to 21. As I said, my daughter is 23, so I have experienced a lot in her various transitions. And the one thing that I came to understand is that every transition, every decision, every next step brings up a range of emotions for parents again. They're stepping into something different or new, or, so it brings up that time where, gosh, I wish I had the opportunity to talk to somebody about this next step. So that's what we're looking to do with our Parent Guide program as well. So this whole 14 to 21-year-old piece of, kind of looking at how would kids know to make appointments on their own? How would they request interpreters at those appointments if they need that, right? How to not wash the whites with the reds. Soft skills, because what happens? They say, oh, my clothes are clean, and they're pink, right? So this is new to us and new this year, so that's part of what we're looking to do. We also want to equip parents with tools that they can share with the educational programming. I started the first conversation that I had with a parent when I was diagnosed. That mom said to me, do you do an All About Me document, Laurie Nelson? And I'm like, what is that? And she just said, it's a way to write down your parental perspective of what you think your child's strengths are or where they might need additional supports. Okay, so I've learned a lot along this journey, and it's taken and really been inputted into a lot of the programming that we have. And like I said, I'm really, really thrilled that we're able to do that, and support families within our programs. So our visits are conducted in person and via distant technology. So whatever the family is comfortable with, not that they just have, like, oh yes, I have FaceTime. Do you use FaceTime? No, never have. So we've kind of got a scope with the family, the understanding of the technology that they have. And I don't know about you guys, but technology changes faster than I can blink sometimes. So trying to keep up with that as well. And then what are they comfortable using? Because we want to make sure we're meeting the needs. And I have to say that the technology and its use has helped a lot with, like, when you have to cancel a visit with perhaps sick kids or inclement weather, and it saves us on budget too, So it's nice that we've incorporated that into how we are supporting families as well. I'm also a big fan of offering networking opportunities for families. We'll talk about the conference in a little bit, but we've actually started a mom's brunch through Hands and Voices, which is another organization in our state. But we come together quarterly for our mom's brunches for 3 hours. Everybody brings a dish to pass, and somebody finds a house or a place, like, so if you had a meeting room here you would like to offer. The event could be hosted here, and a parent coordinates it, and then we just talk about our kids for 3 hours. No agenda, and we had one, at the last one we had a mom of a child who was 6 weeks, and we had a mom of a child who was 27. And the mom of the child that was 27 said, gosh darn it, Laurie Nelson, I learned so much today. So did the 6-week-old, and the mom of the 6-week-old is hosting the next one next Sunday. So I'm sorry, I get a little goosebumpy too. There wasn't this stuff available. I ached to get together with somebody else. And now that we can offer this and really help meet the needs of families, whatever that may be, and that's the joy of it. Everybody comes and doesn't know about this or that, or wants to talk about this or that, and it's nice to be able to just come together. So we're hoping to be able to spread this concept throughout the state and start having these more together maybe on the same date, but in various different regions of the state. So as I'll go and talk a little bit in the rest of my presentation, that's where this thing about building collaboration comes in. If there's places where you guys are like, there's a group of people or parents in this area, how could we do that? How could we bring them together? We can work together collaboratively to do that. We also have the Deaf Mentor Program in our outreach services. The Deaf Mentor Program and Deaf Mentor First Step are designed to help families learn about deaf culture and American Sign Language. So Deaf Mentor First Step is done I should say all, there's never an all, there's always an exception, right? But done through the distant technology, okay? If the family doesn't have access, technology, high-speed internet, then we'll review on a case-by-case basis of maybe doing some direct support with them. But the first 16 sessions are really an introduction to sign language vocabulary, okay? And then if families want to continue on, or families, choose to start up with the 100 sessions, then that is done via one in person and one via technology. So really it's a case-by-case basis depending on where families live and their needs. Question?
One, are the deaf mentors volunteers, or are they paid employees? And the second question is, are these lessons done for the entire family or just one at a time? Do they do the child and the parent separately?
Very good questions. The parent guides and the deaf mentors are both employees of outreach services. Okay? Within the Deaf Mentor Program, it is working with the child and the family. So it is together. So, and if there's extended family, if they want to look at bringing in maybe a child care provider, if they, so it really looks at the family team. And then in also with our sessions, it could offer into maybe the program support staff that's working with the kids when they get in to the school system as well. So we're kind of going through a change in our system, where we've been the same way for a lot of years. So we're under construction, as we say. So really looking at meeting the needs and where they're at, and to say that we really do look at that child and that child's team for everything and how we offer our supports. Did that answer? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, wait, 2. Okay, so 1 and 2.
Can I go?
Please.
Okay. I know you said birth to 3. What does it continue out to what age for deaf mentor?
Well, within our outreach supports, it's 3 to 21. Birth to 3 is the 0 to 3 supports at that age, and that's under the Department of Health. So our supports go 3 to 21, but depending on when a family might enroll in the program, the sessions are as such as are outlined here, but may change. We have additional supports that go to families that have children that have deaf-blind kids as well, which we link through WDB TAP. So, and then there's also opportunities where we look at, building that bridge of, where are there additional classes. Sometimes both within the Parent Guide program and the Deaf Mentor program, once their time is finished in the program in and of itself, that relationship doesn't just end. We don't say, hi, thanks for your hours of time here and have a nice life. So the parameters are still set up with, building, like would we have, role models come in or do assigned classes somewhere, but the program components are as such, but there's always that way to continue, and having families come to the family conference, which we'll talk about in a little bit too. So did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay, in the back?
I have a quick question regarding, do you help families find providers that can sign for them? I had a situation where I had a grandmother contact me, and she was looking for a psychiatrist or a mental health provider that could sign for her grandson.
Okay, so the question was, do we help families find providers that may have specific needs, and that she had been contacted by a grandparent who was looking for mental health services. So on our outreach team, we have Holly Barnes-Spink, who is our school psychologist. So in that case, that would be a connection with her to say, Holly, would you know of any mental health providers who sign in the community and things like that. So I think the joy of what we do on the outreach services team is if any question comes in, there are 16, 17 of us to take a peek at that and then expand. Who knows what, who can offer this, who can support that. So.
And even if the person is a little bit older, like maybe say 26, 27, would it be appropriate to refer them to, your program or not?
Well, 26 or 27 is going to be out of our scope, so we would probably go to ODHH or ILRs or other places, but I think you can still tap into us in terms of seeking out where those resources may be for people that we may know of. Anything different, Stace? Okay. All right. Any other questions? Did that answer your question? Thank you for asking. Okay, you heard me talk about the conference. Another great thing that I love to do is we have an annual statewide conference. One portion is specifically for families who have children with hearing loss, and then we have a professional conference that dovetails. They're actually combined. It's a Friday and Saturday event. So I love this conference because we have generally around 80, 90 families who attend and about 200 some odd kids. So Mason chuckles. When the kids start to arrive Friday afternoon, for those of us who plan the conference, we're we're a little tired. It's a big event to plan, but the minute the little people come, we just light up because it is such a wonderful event that only happens once a year. But it is a joy to see the kids connect, and maybe they hadn't met or seen each other from last year's conference to this year's conference, and we can see squeals, and kids are signing to one another, and they're talking to one another, and parents are connecting again, and even the professionals who don't get together. It's really, when I talk about networking for parents, I think networking is important for professionals. I think networking is important for families. I just think networking is so important, and we work within an agency that really promotes that. So the family conference is in Appleton this year. We bring in presenters, and have informational and educational workshops. Our conference this year is going to be more leaning towards interactive learning opportunities for families. I don't know about you guys, but somebody that sits up here like me and just talks all day long, I'm going to probably bore you out in about 2 hours. I'll give myself 2 hours. So this year we're really looking at having interactive workshops with our audiences. And I think a lot of times the families and the professionals both will come to the conference with questions about things that they're currently working on or dealing with, with their children and their students. So we have an opportunity for parents and professionals to express, what they want the answers to, because that will help us plan the 2018 conference as well. So really the networking is profound. That's one of the goals I think that happens. The kids have a great time. We have deaf and hard of hearing role models who are there as our volunteers for the kids. I pride myself in thinking that the greatest volunteer is the child that once attended who comes back to volunteer. And their families still keep coming too and help out in ways. So, we're on a journey in life, all of us. Where we go, how we get there is really based on choices. I think as a parent of an adult now, there's a new word called PODA, parent of a deaf adult. But parenting an adult now, I often say, my daughter has become my teacher, I her student. And she's taken me places that I never thought I'd be. Sorry. I'm the sappy one of the team. Sorry. Stacy should have said that too. Laurie will come up and she'll cry. That's why she's got her Kleenex. Another it's real for me.
Laurie,
Yes.
does the conference, is it different parts of the state, different years?
Yes, it is. Good question. We do travel around. Working with a DPI budget, we have a process to go through, so we have to bid it out. And technically, we try to stay in the same spot for 2 years, and then we move around so we can meet the needs, so people aren't, crossing all over this entire state. So, yeah, we've been in Appleton the last 2 years. Any other questions about the conference? You guys are more than willing to come exhibit or, contribute in a way too. You should go. Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. Okay. Another parent support program we have is called Partners in Listening. Really looking at supporting the kids with hearing loss to develop listening and spoken language. Okay. We live in a world of acronyms. We have abbreviations for everything. So I tried not to put a lot of this in here, but LSL. We have ASL. We have LSL. So really, Stacy did a nice job of kind of taking you through, the amplification devices, for kids with hearing loss and hearing aids and cochlear implants and building the brain. It is critical. If you're building the brain, I often say equip your kids with as many communication tools as you can on their tool belt. Expose them to everything. They will then officially take the lead and pick what works for them, right? So this is the part then that works on, that listening and spoken language and really developing that whole child, okay? And it promotes a collaborative team approach with, the professionals that are working with that child or student and the family as well. Another thing that we have to offer is the Spanish-speaking family weekend. We really try hard and have, I think, achieved great success with the Spanish-speaking families attending the family conference too. We had a couple of weekends where they would come separately on their own, and then they also have come to the family conference as well. So if you know of any Spanish-speaking families that would like to join us this year for the conference, please share the word about that. We really try to have every workshop available to them, by a Spanish speaker, so they have the opportunity to have direct access to the communication in Spanish as well. Okay. Consultations. This is another biggie on our team. Stacy and Laura are both consultants on our team. The consultants go out and really help support the student in the school district, looking at supporting the district and how they support that child with hearing loss in their classroom. Okay? I mean, I've gone through everything. Peyton has recently graduated college, so I've gone from, putting her on a school bus at the age of 3 to watching her get a college degree, and I cried every step of the way. But hot damn, we did it. So, there's just a lot that goes into helping people understand the unique needs of our kids. And, for the kids, and I can only speak from my experience, the kids that are hard of hearing, so many people say, well, she heard me okay. She heard me okay. Like Stacy just said, I don't ask, did you hear me? I ask, what did I say? Right? Because Peyton was always so sweet. She would just nod her head, like, did you hear me? Mm-hmm. What did I say? Mm-hmm. So we learned early on that, we can't say, did you hear me? What did mommy want you to do? And I think also, really those effective communication strategies with our kids are so important, because really looking at receptive knowledge and receptive language and then expressive language, two totally different things. Okay, so the consultations can look at that child in that district, take a sneak peek at their given day, and then, come back, offer recommendations, looking at perhaps action plans are new within our consultation piece this year, but really helping that district, support the needs of that child with hearing loss in their educational programming. Okay. We also have some specialized consultations with transition. Mary Ann Barnett is our transition coordinator. And then the technology services, which is Laura. So Laura will be presenting, I think, after lunch. Okay. There are a wealth of supports in our great state. I mean, honestly, I get confused most days. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So I really, I put on our website here so you guys can kind of continually keep checking back in, because we are kind of under construction and a work in process. But, working together is, I think, a way of success for any individual in the lives we can touch. Okay? So I talked about this, about currently under construction. This past June, the outreach team had hosted a statewide summit. So we brought together a variety of stakeholders from throughout the state. So we had parents who were there of kids with hearing loss. We had professionals working in the field who were there. We had members of the deaf community there as well. And we really spent 2 solid days really looking at identifying needs. Is there something? Mason? Captioning's gone. Or somebody. Okay. Time delay? Is that what you said before? This is code for water break.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. We should be back now.
Okay. We good? I guess if I talked, it might help, huh?
There we go. There we go.
Okay, all right. So in June, we had this Stakeholder Summit. So it really gave us some ideas for future programming and really taking an in-depth look at meeting the needs of everybody that's out there. So it's kind of an exciting time to be on the outreach services team that, we can, brainstorm together. And we have a creative group. So it's really fun to see us put our heads together and look at the future a little bit more in detail. So when we talk about looking into the future, these are kind of our 3 C's, okay, of building connections and capacity and collaboration. So if there is anything you guys have ideas for, we want to hear about it. What can we do, to work together to support, people with hearing loss in the field? And, I talked about, just a mom's brunch, having a place where we could host an event is, but if parents don't know about that, if parents are coordinating it, it has to be one of those things that we just continually talk about and continually feed into with new ideas. And I think, the old saying, you build it, they will come, right? I think we've achieved that, at the conference, but we're looking now to continue on and really building capacity in various areas of the state where we have, these kids with hearing loss. Because as the program coordinator for the Parent Guide program, I could just never understand. The referrals would come in one pocket of the state. We'd have some in Eau Claire. And then the next time they would come in pockets in Madison. And then we would go all the way up into Hudson. And then we would go down to La Crosse. And I'm like, man, the stork has been busy. But they just would feed in that way. I never could understand the why that happened. But, there are a lot of us out there. When you get diagnosed and you think you're the only one because you don't know of any other family that has a child with a hearing loss, you come to the conference and you can see about 100, but there are roughly, 2,300 kids in the school districts, 3 to 21. So we've got data to prove, that we're out there all over. So, we have certain support systems, that are here, there, and everywhere, but how do we work together, really, to meet the needs of our kids that are all over? Does take a village. There's my girl. I had to get my hand on that tassel. I just did. I had to get my hand on that tassel. So we did the double I love you hands up here and her pointing to her diploma. So I often say, too, that, parents don't know what they don't know, right? And the system can be very overwhelming. And I think, some parents, go right home and, get on this thing called the World Wide Web. And it's full of information. But it doesn't give you a how-to. How do you parent a child with a hearing loss? So I'm thrilled that we have the supports, on our team. I'm thrilled that there are people like you, that help them as they transition also into becoming, I like to say WASKs, WASKS, well-adjusted, successful kids, because they just transition throughout life into various different things, and it's our job to, help them learn to fly. Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I was just wondering how much with your group and when you travel around the state, how much you utilize the independent living centers or you refer to the independent living centers because of, obviously what we're talking about here today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that resources are available all over. So when we look at how do we refer, I think that's something we can really start to bridge now in terms of what are we doing, what are you guys doing. So we do try to market what other agencies are doing. So we have on our website, if you have anything going on that you want us to market and promote, we could do that, as well as how can we collaborate with you and having, like here, attend these, type of, like I'm learning a lot. I wasn't aware of one when my daughter, was growing up because it wasn't mentioned to me. So I think to look at how we continue to build again, those connections and capacity and collaboration are critical in our next, our future of our supports and services. Because there's little people all over, and little people grow into big people, right? And big people grow into adults. And then as I say now, I'm parenting a child dealing with adult life. There's adult decisions she has to make, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, honey. I don't have, it's your world to pursue. The world awaits you. Okay, any other questions? I went kind of fast, and my voice held, so I'm thrilled. Excuse me.
All right.
Sorry.
It looks like there are no other questions. Is that the case? Thank you very much, Laurie.
Thank
That was
you,
great. That was a
Lisa.
great presentation.
Thank you.